Well, welcome to what's the last lesson on coasts that we're going to cover. This is going to look at management and conflict along the coastline. So before we go on, let's just start with some recap questions. So, can you name 3 types of hard engineering? Can you name 3 types of soft engineering? Can you remember what sediment cells are and why they're important? What is an SMP? What are the principles of an ICZM? So what I want to do is have a go at those, and when you think you've got the answers, well, pause now. When you've got the answers, let's go through them. Okay, so quickly, 3 types of hard engineering. That's anything that interferes with natural processes. So normally involves a barrier of some sort. So a groin, for example, it might be rock armour, it might be a seawall. Soft engineering is anything that works with natural processes. So this might be beach nourishment, we're dumping loads of sand. It might be the restoration of sand dunes. It might be planting trees on a slope, for example, to provide more stability, or sort of encouraging the formation of salt marshes. Sediment cells, these are those sort of closed systems, that sort of diagram where the sort of arrows are going around, showing how the movement of the sediment. So you've got erosion, you've got transfers, you've got zones of deposition. And they're important to coastal managers because actually you want to manage the whole of the sediment cell. If you only look at the management of one part of the sediment cell, then you ignore the knock-on impacts elsewhere. And that's why in this country we have SMPs, shoreline management plans, and they are based around sediment cells. Okay, so that is basically the management of the sediment cell. And an SMP should in theory also be an ICZM, okay, an integrated coastal zone management plan. And that basically is about being sustainable, i.e. the principles of ICZM are that you're meeting the needs of today without harming the ability of future generations, and you're being economically, socially and environmentally sustainable. So that's just a good recap before we move on. But let's have a look more at conflict now. So 2 key terms you'll need to copy these down is what a conflict is, and that's an active disagreement between people. It is not, okay, shooting or beating someone up. That is an extreme form of conflict. A conflict is any sort of disagreement in geography. And then a stakeholder is a person who basically has a view about an issue. So very quickly, what sort of conflicts can you actually think of? Okay, just have a quick, again, stop the video, just jot down where do you think the conflicts might be coming from? Okay, so these are just some sort of conflicts. It could be that it's tourism versus local residents. You know, people want to use it for, use the beach for tourism purposes, and the local residents don't want lots of tourists there. It could be the cost of the whole damn thing, and basically it's very expensive to do this. So is it actually worth protecting the area? It might be environmentalists versus the need to manage. Environmentalists might be quite happy with natural processes going on. People might actually need to manage it, and that might damage things like, I don't know, bird sanctuaries and things like that. It might be industry versus locals. It might be people want to do fishing or the oil industry or something like that, and not particularly positive for locals. It might even be, and we'll look at examples of this, conflicts between different governments. Now that might be different counties. A good example is Barton-on-Sea in the south coast, or it might be between countries where you've got one country perhaps damming a river, and that has an impact downstream on the coast. So they're the sort of things that you need to think about. Now, a lot of this video actually is you stopping and going and doing something. So here's 2 little videos. There's East Anglia, which is an example of a rapidly eroding coastline, and the Holderness Coast, which we've already looked at. And again, it should be something you're familiar with. So watch these 2 videos. Okay, think of the nature of the conflict. Is what is it, the disagreement? Where is it coming from? And where appropriate, okay, how's it being managed? So have a go at those. Add them to your notes. When you've got that done, we'll come back and we'll talk about some other case studies as well. Okay, now we've looked at 2 examples, 2 videos of case studies in the UK. You also need to be able to look at it in other case studies across the globe, but in particular in low-income countries. And 2 that I'm going to ask you to have a look at is the Maldives. So low-lying countries, low-lying country risk, a bit like what do we look at, Tuvalu, risk of sea level rise. You need to have a look at page 150 in the textbook, look at what they're actually trying to do, why is that leading to conflict? And then we talked about an example of sort of dams. Dams are really important in understanding the coast. So not only do they have water issues, and we'll look at that in the water unit next year, but they also trap sediment. So if you build a massive dam like the Aswan Dam, it stops sediment getting to the coastline. And in Egypt, for example, what you'll find is there's a huge amount of sediment no longer getting to the Nile Delta. So there's a massive amount of erosion going on. And that's a real problem for Egypt, because the Nile Delta is basically the largest area of farmland in the entire country. So it's causing lots of issues. So again, it's another bit where I just need you to go away, have a look at those two case studies, get some decent notes, okay, and then when you're ready, carry on. Now, one last case study, which is sort of a really good case, so quite an important one because it's an example of successful management, where they really have been sustainable, is the Blackwater Estuary. And that's not a million miles from where I grew up in Essex. Now, what you need to do here is you need to look at page 156. And you need to answer these questions. So what's the Blackwater Estuary like? What's the land use there for? Is it sort of big urban areas? Is it farmland? Is it high value? Is it low value? And actually that's quite an important sort of context for the rest of the case study. It then asks you, what is coastal squeeze? And this is this idea, if you put sea defences in, what ends up happening is that, in a sense, the land in front of those sea defences will quickly get washed away. And that's a real problem, because actually the closer the more land's washed away, the more expensive the sea defences have to be to prevent flooding, and actually eventually that becomes unsustainable. So the solution here has been pretty much to do away with those. Okay, now what you need to do is be very clear about what the Blackwater Estuary is like, what were the challenges, this idea of coastal squeeze, why was it happening, why was it a problem? What did they do about it, and how did they make sure that all the key stakeholders were happy? So again, it's another one of those things. You need to go away, have a look at that textbook, okay, make sure you've answered those questions, and then when you're ready, we'll come on to the final bit of the video. So pause the video, come back when you're ready. Okay, so just some very quick sort of short answer type questions just to think about. And so if you want to do these and email them to me, you're grand, or you can submit them on Teams, perhaps even better if you do that. So just explain how building dams can affect coastal processes. So again, this is the idea of a dam, and again, the best answers will give a named example. So talk about the Aswan Dam. Okay, we'll trap sediment. Okay, that means there's less sediment getting to the sea. You get a change in the sediment budget. That then means that there's less deposition, and the sand that's been eroded isn't being replaced, and therefore you go into that sort of erosion of the Nile Delta. And then the second one, explain how coastal management can cause conflict. Again, use examples here. Okay, although you don't need to use examples on these sort of questions, the best students always do. So talk about what's happening in the Maldives, the need to balance sort of people's homes and livelihoods and access with the need to prevent the entire country being flooded, or think about the issues of terminal groin syndrome in Holderness. Okay, so they are the sort of things I want you to do. So have a go at those. And then one other thing you need to be aware of is that at the end of next week, you're going to get an exam paper, because that's the end of coast. So you really do need to start revising for that, and I'll send you some resources. If there is anything you're not sure about, as ever, email me and we'll go through them. But like I say, you've got about a week and a bit, and we'll give you an exam paper, so make sure you're ready for that. Right, I hope that's been useful. Any questions, email me.